This week, Ravid Circus from Seemplicity is with us to discuss why security and engineering misalignment is the biggest barrier to effective remediation. Then, for this week's topic segment, we discuss Anthropic's latest security-related report. And then finally, in the enterprise security news this week, vendor layoffs have started again, the sins of security vendor research, the pillars of the internet are burning, selling out to North Korea probably isn't worth what they're paying you, ransom payments in 24 easy installments, a breach handled the right way. We probably shouldn't be putting LLMs into kids' toys. I bought something this week. Ordering coffee from the terminal. All that and more in this episode of Enterprise Security Weekly.
This is a Security Weekly production for security professionals by security professionals. Please visit securityweekly.com/subscribe to subscribe to all the shows on our network.
It's the show where we talk security vendors and aren't afraid to name names. It's Enterprise Security Weekly. Cyber threats follow a familiar path, an attack chain reused across the globe. Fortra knows how the enemy operates, so you can stay one step ahead. Our advanced security solutions detect, disrupt, and defeat threats at every stage, protecting your data, business, and customers. With Fortra at your side, the battle ends before it begins. Visit securityweekly.com/Fortra to see how you can get total attack chain coverage. AI has officially moved past the hype. The question isn't should we use AI anymore, it's how do we use it in a way that truly helps. Meet Delinea Iris AI, practical AI to secure the modern enterprise, designed to work quietly in the background, making faster, smarter access decisions, reducing risk, and giving your team time back. This isn't AI for show. It's purpose-built for identity security, boosting productivity without adding friction. Learn more at securityweekly.com/Delinea. Welcome to Enterprise Security Weekly and happy National Absurdity Day. We have many absurd things in the news that we'll cover later, but this is episode 434, recorded on Thursday, November 20th, 2025. I'm your host, Adrian Sanabria, and joining me is the Admiral of ASPM, the Captain of Content, Katie Teitler-Santullo. How you doing, Katie?
I'm well. I was unprepared for National Absurdity Day, but I love it.
Me too. It was the natural one to go with today. Almost every day in the year has several options to choose from, and I go with the one that seems to fit the show best. Also joining us, the Baron of Bloodhound, the Pirate King of PowerShell, Sean Metcalf. How you doing, Sean?
Doing good. Greetings and salutations to you, Adrian. That's my absurd response.
Yeah.
Well,
there's
what movie was that a famous line from?
Oh, I missed this.
Heathers, the movie Heathers, which was
what was
also
the line? I missed.
Greetings and salutations. Christian Slater uses it over and over again, and it's about the absurdity of high school, basically. So it's very appropriate.
Perfect tie-in.
Nice. We get a movie recommendation also. I love it. All right. Today's topic is security and engineering misalignment. I've already picked up and shown one example of security and engineering misalignment, putting LLMs into kids' toys. We'll talk about that later in the news segment. But we're excited to have Ravid Circus, co-founder and chief product officer at Seemplicity, with us today. He was formerly VP of Customer Success and VP of Products at Skybox Security. Welcome to the show, Ravid.
Hey, Adrian. Hey, everyone. Really happy to be here.
Yeah, happy to have you here. And I always love it when folks come with data, and you came with data this time. A lot of what we're talking about today, I think, is correct me if I'm wrong, is related to your 2025 Remediation Operations Report.
Yeah, it is. So we have performed that report, and we survey many organizations, and asking exactly that things about, the relationship, the work methodologies, the processes between security team and engineering team. And some of the data there is really interesting and fascinating and to some extent absurd in this day.
Yeah, and I get the sense that this is not the first time that you've done the report. From reading the report, you have data from previous years, it looks like?
Yeah, so we've been doing this report for the last 3 years, I think. Some things have changed, not a lot, not materially, I'll say it this way. But we do start to see some movement. We do start to see some improvements on those relationships and on those work methodologies. So I'm optimistic, to say the least.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's remediation and maybe somewhat related, the term resilience that we're starting to see more now. When a company's remediating, it's very visible, right? When there's some kind of attack, I presume we're not just talking about attacks, but also like fixing vulnerabilities, right? Mm-hmm. Remediating vulnerabilities as well. And just kind of center us on that. I don't want to go off into breach response if we're primarily talking about remediating vulnerabilities and misconfigurations and things like that.
Yeah, I think that we talked about absurd. So I think one of the absurd or the biggest gaps is that security teams are responsible to fix and remediate and make the organization more secure, but they are not authorized to actually deploy the change, to actually make the fix, to actually...
They don't own the assets.
Exactly. So that gap is almost the basis for any friction or any tension that you have between the two teams. That one is being measured about making the organization more secure, but it can actually not make the organization more secure by itself. So meeting its goal is actually fully dependent on other teams that they have their own goals and they are completely different, like creating innovation, like creating more products, like making the organization more resilient, not having operational problems. And I think that that's the basis of the friction. I don't think that there is any engineer that want to create a software or an environment which is not secure. I think that they all want to create something which is great, but some of them don't have the knowledge, some of them don't have the time. And when you do come back and say, guys, you actually need to focus on this or focus on that or the other, this is where that friction comes into play, because those security guides come with a list of problems, not necessarily with action items. Every day come with a different thing, and sometimes come with a different format in different ways in different locations, and kind of expect the engineering team to go and stop everything and fix all of that. And I think that that gap between who is responsible to is authorized is the thing that we actually need to address as we look on why security and engineering have sometimes hard time to work together.
One thing that stood out to me in the report was highlighting the difficulty of collaboration between security and IT, just to your point. And towards the end, I thought it was interesting that the majority of the folks that filled out the report or the survey that fed into the report actually came from the IT side. So it sounded like really they'd like to collaborate more with security, but it's just not happening. How do you think that can be solved? Because I've seen in environments where security has their own reporting chain, and like you said, they have their own metrics, their own things that they're working on, their own priorities, and IT has their own reporting chain. What do you think we can do to kind of cut through that and make this easier so that we
make
can
them
have
share cubicles? Make them sit in the same cubicle.
Yeah.
I'm a cybersecurity vendor. I'm selling to cybersecurity guys. And many times when you sell to cybersecurity guys, you think what they need. What they actually need is for the fixing teams or for the fixers to actually fix. And as you change that perspective and you're trying to understand that you need to help the IT teams, to help the security teams to become more secure, that makes a lot of big differences. Instead of giving a long list of vulnerabilities, which are problems, maybe we need to give them a short list of action items, which are solutions or patches or fixes or configurations. Maybe instead having each of the security teams configured to send you alerts, Jira tickets, Excel sheets, okay? And have different times of the day, different formats, different scores. What we actually need to do is to create a backlog of security issues that we actually want you to address over the next 2 weeks, over the next 2 sprints, over the next 2 months, whatever it is. So moving away from how security tools discover, detect, identify, and alert problems, and actually change or transform the discussion to how remediation teams fix, operate, manage their day-to-day tasks. And I think that's the biggest thing. So people think about collaboration like, let's set up a Slack channel, or, let's create a Confluence page or forum or a drive when we can put everything there together. That's not a collaboration. A collaboration is to make sure that 2 different processes on the same organization actually align to each other and serve the needs of the 2 parties of that process. And I think that those are the kind of things that we see with our customers, and we see across the industry, that the misalignment of the processes between security team that find new things every day and engineering team that plans a sprint for 2 weeks, or between security team that have 3 different tools that do not talk to each other, and an engineering team that have features, has bugs, have security issues, and they want to treat all the same. Those are the kind of things that if we would solve them, actually, as I said, I think engineering teams want to make more secure organization. We just need to help them do that.
Right. And I think another issue with that was relating to the report saying that so much of these actions are manual and not automated. So that makes it even more difficult to try to figure it out. And I saw also that the ratings behind the vulnerabilities that in order to get fixed, it seemed like the CVEs were towards the bottom, where there were another number of other things that were towards the top as far as prioritizing that. So how does that kind of complicate this issue as well?
So I think that I'll address both of the questions. I think if we start from the rating part, then I think that any information that you get from the outside is contextless. It doesn't have your organizational context. So CV is great.
It can, right?
It can. It can give you information, technical information about the finding or the vulnerability, but it's not yours. It is completely different if it was discovered on a production internet-facing asset, or it was discovered on a development or developer MacBook in somewhere behind proxies, VPNs, and what have you. And I think that one of the important things that needs to be done first is to contextualize everything that we do. It's not just what the problem is; it's also where the problem is. And where the problem is, you can only get by getting the internal context of the organization. Whether that's technical context, like whether it's exposed to the internet, whether it's production or development, but it can also be organizational parts, like, is that a crown jewel? Is that my finance application? Is that my, just my, food ordering portal or whatever it is? Those kind of contexts make a lot of difference in the prioritization. And if you rationalize the priority to your engineers, they will go and fix it. If they agree that whatever you have marked as a P0s or P1s is really severe, they will go and fix it. But if you would just send them a contextless P0s or P1s, or 8.4s and 8.7s, they would just not understand and will not have the motivation to actually run through that and go and fix it.
Yeah. Yeah. There's a bunch of things I kind of take issue here, where we're just not speaking the same language, right? Like it doesn't do anything for me to tell you that your iPhone has CVE 2025 12345 on it, right? like we don't patch CVEs on iPhones. We apply the patch that Apple gives us when Apple decides to give that to us, right? Like I remember there was a startup over a decade ago called Mobilisafe or something like that. And that's what they did, is they would scan mobile devices and tell you what CVEs were on those devices. And I think it truly would have been useful, if they told you when a new update from Verizon was available for your Motorola, whatever, then you could take action, right? And this is really frustrating when you get into like even Microsoft products and stuff like that, because you might be given, a vulnerability scan might give you 250,000 critical vulnerabilities. And then when you actually boil all that down to the actions that need to take place, maybe 90% of it is goes away when you update Microsoft Office. So I'm like, why didn't the tool just tell me update Microsoft Office? Why give me this giant non-human readable list?
Yeah, correlation issue.
Exactly. And it also goes in other directions. So, for example, I'm talking a lot with the fixing teams because I want to hear their perspective. And, one of the guys that was actually a developer that working on a code was telling me a story and said, about 3 weeks ago, those security guys sent me a SQL injection that I need to fix on my code. I fixed that. I took my application through all the release cycle. I took my application through QA and testing until it was released. And then the security team sent me another SQL injection on the exact same file. If they would have sent those two for me together, I would have fixed the two, but test it only once, release it only once. So kind of the security team is thinking from a feed point of view, feed of problems. And engineering is actually thinking about, what is the shortest way to get that into production
batching
and reduce the effort and reduce the times on me. So I completely agree. So, if you didn't upgrade your Chrome for 6 months, you probably accumulated 30 different CVEs. So what? You need to upgrade your Chrome to the latest version. Okay, but that goes away also beyond just vulnerabilities, also to misconfigurations and to application code securities and many other things that there is a better way to fix this. There is a better way to manage the process of fixing. And I think that that's something that we need to address in order to help IT development, engineering teams to actually work much more efficiently on security findings.
It's kind of like Amazon deliveries, right? Like you go to order something on Amazon and they'll tell you, if you wait one more day, we can put all this in one box and just ship one box instead of several trucks, several separate boxes. But if you don't really understand what that means in terms of delivery costs and environment and all that, like a lot of people like, no, just send it to me as quickly as possible, like without understanding the other side of it.
Exactly.
I want my widget tomorrow.
Yeah. And I think that it's funny because on the very early days of Seemplicity, one of the things that we have on our slides, it's exactly something like this kind of a warehouse when we take for you all the different problems and we package it together because this is what you wanted, this is what you asked for. And there is no point in sending you different pieces of the same puzzles in different packages. So I completely agree. And I think that's where the efficiency is. The efficiency is to understand that one process that is dictated by discovery tool is not a process that is required for fixing teams. And as you realize that, there is a lot of improvements, by the way, a lot of automations, a lot of capabilities that you can put in place that actually will make this process significantly more efficient.
Is this where the LLMs, the AI in products can come into play? Not in terms of buzzwords and marketing, but actually doing the aggregation, because most tools now, they will give you the AI recommendation or allow you to query for what should I do. But can we flip the presentation? Because normally when you log into a lot of these tools, the ones that start with visibility, start with discovery, they focus on, look how much we've found for you. But yet that's almost not helpful, right? Like I understand from the vendor point of view, and I've certainly worked for plenty of vendors, and you want to be like, look, I'm working hard, I'm doing my job. But it's not helpful to almost, everybody, right? And so instead of saying, here are the 3 billion things we found, be like, hey, I'm logging in. Here are the 5 things I need to do today. I know personally when I look at a checklist of things I need to do in a day, if there are 4 or 5 things on that, I feel a lot better than if there are 100 or 1,000 or more. So is this where that automation, where that AI can actually make a difference? And here's the $1 million question for you. Do you think that might be something that vendor companies would embrace?
So I think there are a few things. So we talked about absurd. What you just mentioned is a huge absurd. We, as a market, incentivized scanning companies to discover more. Because if you would have scanned 2 tools and one will give you 100 results and the other one will give you 1,000 results, you just don't know if the first one is better than the second one. And you will probably choose the second one just to be on the safe side. So
right, it's a CYA to your boss.
Exactly. So we as a market incentivize.
This one can bury me deeper. I can get buried up to my neck instead of just up to my waist.
Exactly. And therefore, we kind of created that monster that keep creating and giving you more findings, but leaving that on the security team table. And I completely agree with you, Katie, about the ability of AI and LLM, but not just those. Those can be a good combination on top of that. But there is also simple use cases that can be done. But really the idea is to look on the list of findings, on all those things that you actually want to fix, and think about the other side. Think about, if that's a developer, what would be the best way for him or she to actually fix that. If that's an IT person that works on a server, he will want to deploy the patch on a server-by-server basis. But if that's an IT person that works on the desktops, he will probably push all the patches to the desktops and one operation in his patch management. So the exact same problem, depending on how the remediation team is working, requires a completely different packaging. And that's why I think that you're right. It's a combination of, on one hand, understanding how the organization works. So it's not just a technical grouping or technical aggregation by the solution, is to understand how the organization works and to create that packaging, or that, let's call it a remediation item, which is a group of findings, okay? Create that remediation items that will be delivered in the most efficient way to the person that can actually fix that. And we do that both by static business rules, but also using AI and LLM that, besides identifying that those are very similar things, can also take multiple things and create very, very clear instruction set on what it is that you need to do in order to cover those 10 problems in your next release, as opposed to running between 10 different problems and figure out the 6 actions that you actually need to do out of it.
The last part, I'm asking you to look in your crystal ball. What do you think the likelihood is of companies actually adopting that pared down, very targeted approach? So when I log in, Sean logs in, Adrian logs into their console, it says, hey, good morning, do this. Not these 3,000
It's hiding
other
things on purpose? Yeah?
Not hiding them,
protecting
but
you from...
presenting you with the most important things. Like, there are things that I do and have to do, that we all have to do during the day, that aren't on our, quote, to-do list. But what are the most important?
The ADHD dashboard sounds like what you're proposing.
Kind of.
Yeah, I think that vendors are doing that. I know at least one vendor that's doing that. But I think that we got to the point that you see 2 things, discovery of findings or vulnerabilities is very commodity. Almost any vendors do that. And I think that the vendors that will be successful is those that will be able to make an impact in the organization. So not just to create another single pane of glass, because single pane of glass sit on your table, you don't move it because you're afraid it's going to break, but actually move from a single pane of glass to something which is much more actionable, okay? Moving your exposure management to exposure action, so the organization will actually fix and remediate and become more secure, and not just become more managed, I think.
Okay.
So One of the concerns I have is I feel like we have several different priorities and motivations in vulnerability management. One is we want to get something remediated before it's attacked, right? So preventing attacks is one use case. You have to be, speed is very important. If you want to prevent an attack, especially if it's a 0-day, the patch is available, the clock starts ticking the moment the vulnerability is disclosed, right? And you've got to wait for a scanning vendor to write a check for it. You got to wait for that check to go through QA production. You got to wait for Nessus to update and download it. You got to wait for the next scheduled scan to run. You got to then wait for a human to see that, or it goes into another system like yours. And then the other side of that is you've got compliance teams who, we need a clean scan for PCI, right? Once a quarter. Like to me, that's a completely different process, completely different timetables, different drivers, different priorities. And I don't know. I want to get your feedback on this. Should those even be the same processes, or are those even the same tools?
So I think it's a great question. Okay. I think that the way I see that is when we talk about data platforms that get data from a lot of tools, okay, we are focusing on the intake of the data and get a lot of data from different tools to have one place to see all the data. I think that what we are missing is the fact that inside the organization, there are different people that needs to consume the data and need to consume it in different formats. Mm-hmm. Your fixers need to get patch instructions. Your auditors need to get your PCI clean list level, okay? And your board of directors need to get your risk score, and your internal security team need actually to get, which remediation teams actually need help from me because they are not catching up with their SLAs. So I think that as you think about it, it's not, everyone looks on the security team as the consumer or the only consumer of that data, but that is completely wrong. There are multiple people in the organizations which are the consumer of this data, and each and every one of them need that in different format, in different place. Jira, ServiceNow, reports, dashboards, email, Power BI, or what have you. And I think that the ability of security teams to actually scale and being able to serve all this data from all those different tools that we just collected it from is by creating such a platform that will centralize all the data, make all the adjustment and digesting of data, and make it available to whoever needs the data. We are calling that internally remediation data everywhere, because that's how we need to look at that. It's not security data, it's remediation data. That's how you're going to make your organization more secure.
And it seems like, just from looking at some of your stuff, it seems like that's more of a itemized thing than a gigantic list. Something maybe itemized is the wrong term. Like I see some suggestions of chat ops in some of the diagrams and things like that on your website. In the old days, it would be, a huge PDF or a spreadsheet with just tons of things in it, right? Does it make more sense? Well, and again, earlier you were talking about if you had just packaged up these two SQL injections into one, like how do we solve that kind of information overload problem where we throw again, I think this goes kind of to Katie's question as well, like you overwhelm someone and nothing gets done. Right. They're like, there's no way I can do these 968 things this week. So I'm just not even going to look at it.
So I think you just don't need to throw. And I think that's where automations come into play. If you don't do an automation and you're the security team and you process those 296 things, all you can do is move them to the other side. But what the teams on the other side will look on that list and say, guys, we can solve 10 on the next 2 weeks. Which 10? So, but if you put automation in place, what you actually can do is send them the first 10. And as they remediate another 5 or 7, send them another 5 or 7. Now, you cannot do that manually, but if you have an automation in place, every time you think about it as a queue, there is a queue or there is a backlog of security findings. And you set the queue size for a 10, and if the guys are fixing and you have some slots on the queue, you will backfill to that for them. So every time they come to plan their next sprint, their next release, their next patch cycle, they have the top 10 and it's ready for them. They don't need to wait for the security team to process that for them, to give them the list, to give them a list of 290 things and go through that again and again and again. They're actually getting a very short backlog. And automation is the king here, because you cannot manage 50, 70, 200 backlogs of 200 teams in your organization and every few days recycle the queue. You cannot do that manually. Okay? But if you put automation in place, that's exactly what you can do. We will give you the first 10. As you remediate, we will backfill that queue for you. Okay, so you will have the next 10 for your next cycle. And you actually create the security remediation and security findings as part of a regular cadence, and not that dramatic thing that comes with a huge report that we need 2 status meetings just to review that, to decide what are the 10 we are going to fix. Okay, so I think that's where automation is really making a huge difference in the ability to make that as a business as usual process, rather than a crisis every time again.
Yeah. How do you eat an elephant, right? Kind of
exactly.
That sort of thing. Yeah.
Exactly.
All right. Well, this was excellent. Ravid, thank you so much for joining us on Enterprise Security Weekly today.
Thank you, guys. It was a pleasure.
One of my favorite topics. I hope the audience gets a lot out of that, a lot of sage wisdom there. And stay tuned. When we come back, we're going to discuss the latest Anthropic security report in this week's topic segment. Ever feel like your network infrastructure is stuck in the past? Meet Meter, the company reimagining what it means to get and stay online. Meter delivers full-stack networking, wired, wireless, and cellular, all in one seamless, scalable, and secure solution. From hardware design and firmware to software deployment and support, Meter streamlines every part of your network while giving you all the control and transparency you need. Whether you're managing a branch office, retail stores, or a massive data center, Meter gives you performance, reliability, and the visibility you need to stay in control. Thanks to Meter for sponsoring. Go to securityweekly.com/meter to book a demo now. That's securityweekly.com/meter. METER. Ransomware. Supply chain attacks. 0 days. Cyber threats don't wait, and neither should your defenses. With ThreatLocker, you're not just reacting to threats, you're stopping them before they start. Our Zero Trust endpoint protection locks down your environment with pinpoint control over what's allowed to run and what's not. No guesswork, no blind spots. Just proactive, built-for-now security that keeps your business moving. Want to see how a true default deny strategy works? Head over to securityweekly.com/ThreatLocker and take the first step towards shutting the door on threats before they even knock. Welcome back to Enterprise Security Weekly. For this week's topic segment, we chose to discuss Anthropic's latest security report, disrupting the first reported AI-orchestrated cyber espionage campaign. Seems to be divisive with security professionals, with some saying, yay, it's great that they're doing this, and others saying, I'd like some more technical details, especially folks with offensive security backgrounds are like, what prompts did they put in? Why are they using Anthropic and not DeepSeek or some local model or something like that? Especially if this is China doing it. Seems kind of weird they would choose a U.S. controlled company that can see all the prompts that they're typing in to do this, and not a Chinese controlled company where they, could maybe have a little bit more leeway. So there's a lot of questions here. I also found it a little weird that, we know that this is part of Anthropic's branding. And their identity is they're the AI tech company that's concerned about safety, right? And ethics and stuff like that. So they release a lot of reports like this where they try to be the first ones to do really nasty things with their own technology. And, so this is just the latest in a multitude of reports that's come out of Anthropic. But yeah, I did find it kind of odd that the CEO's on 60 Minutes saying, "Oh, this technology is terrible. It's dangerous. Nobody should be using it." And it's my company is also 100% dependent on it. So I don't know. What is the impression that you guys got from this?
Well, I thought it was very interesting. I agreed with you about the fact that they were using Anthropic Claude. The information in the post that Anthropic put out had information about how the campaign worked, that there was a team of 10 that were involved that interacted with it and was working with it. I thought it was fascinating that they pointed out that the guardrails were broken basically to enable this activity, this attack activity. And then the other part that I found interesting was that Claude would actually hallucinate the credentials, some of the credentials that were found, as well as some of the findings that were involved as well. So that's something that's definitely not a good thing if you're trying to be a sneaky adversary and fly below the radar in the environment. It's also not certain how much involvement there was by the human team, but Anthropic made it sound like they had to work at every step and check and double check and have input in it. So it wasn't something where it was fully autonomous or agentic from the Claude perspective. It would go and get some information, then that would have to be reviewed. Maybe there was code that they used from Claude and then push that out to do it. So I found that very interesting, Adrian.
Yeah, and just want to throw in there, it's great. If you choose one article to check out about this, the Cyberscoop article from Derek B. Johnson, who used to be one of the writers, one of the journalists at SC Media, did a great job on this, and I think definitely the most thoughtful of the ones that I've seen out there on this topic.
Yeah, and I like the quote from Jen Easterly in there, former CISA director, talking about how really there needs to be more transparency. It's nice that Anthropic's putting out this information, but there's a lot of questions around it, as you alluded to. What were they able to do? What were they not able to do? Where were the kind of touch points where this AI capability failed for them? What are the IOCs? And that was something that Kevin Beaumont called out on LinkedIn, who writes under Double Pulsar. What are the IOCs? How do we know how to do this? And Cyberscoop, the article you mentioned, had put in the article that they had shared it with other tech companies, probably other AI companies. But it would be really interesting to get some more information from Anthropic on how this really came together and mapped it out. Even some visualizations would be nice to show the checkpoints that humans had to be involved with. So that would enable us to actually understand
a graph
how far
of it would
along
be great, a diagram. Yeah.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't get a lot of chance to look through this. But I know that one of the criticisms of this report, or I shouldn't say criticisms, one of the things that some people found a little confusing or questionable was that the claims were that Claude ran 80 to 90% of the campaign autonomously. And some people are wondering, how much of that is truly autonomous, how much of it has some sort of human hand or human guidance in it. Sean, you mentioned hallucinations. Where does that come in? Are the hallucinations because there was human interference at some point? So, I think, from what I know, which is very, very surface level, we definitely need more data. We definitely need to understand what's happening. I think that the industry as a whole, cybersecurity as a whole, is very fascinated with AI. And I think Anthropic is doing the best that they can right now, amid all of the other pressures. But there's a lot to be questioned. And when you have a company who is on the forefront saying, we really care, we're really trying for safety, and then they put out this kind of report, you have to ask some questions and you have to have a little more transparency.
And of course, the flip side of that is, where is OpenAI? Where is XAI? Where are the other companies with what they're seeing from the use of their models?
Right.
Adrian had made a point before we started this about the fact that it's great that they are sharing information where they also could just not.
Yeah. And so there's some other, so a quick point to make, I think one of the reasons that Claude is in use here is there's only a handful of AI agents that are packaged up as like, an agent you can install on your endpoint, that can do command line, terminal stuff, run scripts. Like most of us experience AI through a web-based portal, a SaaS tool, that doesn't have access to a command line, or, it can't run Nmap, can't run Metasploit and stuff like that. But if you install Claude Code on your machine, I haven't looked at all the MCP servers out there, but it would be super easy to build an MCP server for any of these command line hacking tools. So maybe that's one of the reasons they chose Claude. Also in this article, there is towards the end, there is the idea that this was intended to be caught, that Anthropic was intended to publicize this because China wants the US to know that, not only can we use AI to automate our attacks, we'll use your companies, your tools to do it.
Right. Yeah, that was a fascinating angle with it. And to the point about using Claude, the article, or the full post from Anthropic does show a diagram with 3 MCP servers and the targets being a web app, database, internal network, cloud infrastructure, and appliances. So there was some thought behind how they were structuring this and what they were doing. There was no information about who was targeted or how this was being leveraged against a company, whether it was US based or otherwise. So there's probably a lot more questions being asked than what the information actually answers.
Yeah, and I put back when what was that Substack that we were doing with Tyler, Katie? What was the name of it?
Sorry, I was on mute. The CyberWhy?
Yeah, the CyberWhy. I wrote a piece for the CyberWhy back in early 2023. And my concern was exactly this, that generative AI would kind of plug those last few gaps where you couldn't fully automate an attack. Because my theory was, based on a lot of things that we've seen doing breach postmortems, is that attackers had a lot more opportunity to hit companies than they actually ever used. Like in the 2016 Joe Sullivan Uber hacking case. Uber was just the first one of over 1,000 organizations they had working credentials for, because basically they went out and they scraped credentials from GitHub long before GitHub was doing that for you, and will let you know, hey, maybe you shouldn't hard code credentials or put your AWS keys in a public repo. And they never hit any of the other ones just because they didn't have time. So it was my concern that we would get to this point that maybe generative AI would help them maybe fully automate ransomware, fully automate some of these attack campaigns, or automate them to the point to where, they can kind of 10x or 100x the impact of what they're doing, even if there are still human in the loop, some manual steps in there, like just finding the vulnerability that gets you in. Like that's a huge part of a pen test, right, Sean? Is just finding that one exploit that's going to work. And that's the part that, especially with like DAST type scanning, fuzzing, that kind of thing, generative AI seems to be really good at finding stuff.
And the documentation behind it, it extensively documented all the different steps that it took and what it identified, what it found, and put that together. The other interesting thing about the information from Anthropic is that they were using open source tools. So there was no custom malware or anything that was generated as part of this, which might actually point to this being something that was meant to be discovered, since there was nothing that they weren't burning any of their special sauce, so to speak.
Yeah, I often joke in a pen test, you scope 40 hours and there's like 30 minutes of actual hacking in there. Like the rest is scanning stuff, looking for stuff, writing the report, right? And just this tiny, tiny little bit in the middle there before you write the report and after you, look through all the stuff and decide on what target you're going to go after, that there's that 30 minutes of hacking. And yeah, it sounds like on the documentation, the reporting side, that is fully automatable today. And on the scanning, finding the vulnerabilities, that could potentially be fully automated also. So even if it is a human doing the actual hacking bit, that's really sped up attackers' capabilities here and pen testers, right? Like, good guys can take advantage of this too.
Yeah, you have to wonder if Anthropic has the evil bit set when they notice something that's a little unusual going on their network or on their systems. Yeah,
it'd be really interesting to interview some folks there about how they do some of this stuff. It is frustrating. Like I'm left with nothing but questions, having a pen testing background and experience. So many questions. I really want to see what this looks like.
Right, exactly.
But yeah, the diagrams help a lot. The diagram on page 7 is really useful, where you see how the MCP servers call the different tools, and you're not worried about the AI being deterministic because these tools are already designed for the output of Nmap to be the input for Metasploit, and so on, right? These tools are already connected.
Right.
Yeah. All right. I don't think I really have anything else to say on that. So we can go ahead and wrap unless there's some final thoughts here. I still want to read the whole report, so maybe we'll come back to this in another segment. I'd be interested to watch that 60-minute segment. So yeah, interested to hear what the audience thinks of this. See if they're as divided as security experts have been in the media.
Absolutely.
All right, that's all the time we have for this week's topic segment. Stick around. We've got some really interesting and some absurd stuff in the weekly news. So we'll be right back with that. Do your end users always, and I mean always, without exception, work on company-owned devices and IT-approved apps? I didn't think so. So my next question is, how do you keep your company's data safe when it's sitting on all those unmanaged apps and devices? 1Password has an answer to this question: Extended Access Management. 1Password Extended Access Management helps you secure every sign-in for every app on every device because it solves the problems traditional IAM and MDM can't touch. Check it out at securityweekly.com/1Password. Imprivata delivers simple and secure access management solutions for healthcare and other mission-critical industries to ensure every second of crucial work is both frictionless and secure. Imprivata Enterprise Access Management delivers simple and secure access to any app from any device with single sign-on, multi-factor, and passwordless authentication. The solution streamlines workflows, reduces password fatigue, and ensures seamless access for every identity. Learn more about how Imprivata is redefining secure access at securityweekly.com/Imprivata. Welcome back to Enterprise Security Weekly. Now for the Enterprise Security Weekly news. You can check out securityweekly.com/434 if you want to follow along as we go through the news or for links to the articles that we're covering. And we've got some interesting stuff today. It was funny. I went up for some water a moment ago, and Katie, you are further east in the Eastern time zone, so I imagine it's what, dark at 4 p.m. there?
Not quite. It's
Not quite?
actually later out. Yeah, you can sort of see there's Gus again, but yeah, it'll be getting dark in about a half hour.
So it's overcast here, so it's already. I guess that's the reason it feels like it's almost already there. And I was in St. Louis and Chicago earlier this week, and I guess where they sit in the time zone, it was dark way before 5 p.m. there too. So one of my least favorite things about this time of year. All right.
Yes, sunset
let's jump into
4:18.
it.
So 18 minutes from now, you'll see my room go dark.
Yeah. Yeah. That's, I remember this time of year for you. We usually do see your room change in the amount of light, as we go to the end of the podcast.
9:00 is brutal. So thank God we end by 5, because by 9:00, it feels like it's been nighttime forever.
Well, it has been nighttime for like 4 hours. Yeah. At least 5 hours. So this week in the security funded newsletter, the vibe check was interesting. Mike Prevet asked, what's something you wish AI agents could do for your security program? And, the first answer was perform third-party risk analysis, which was interesting. And the second answer was handle all identity and access management onboard offboarding requests. I love that. Was pretty interesting.
I love number 2, because at the root of everything is access, right? You're not just talking about people though, right? You're talking about systems and access too, but at very least, if we could handle the low hanging fruit effectively and efficiently, how many companies have you or friends or colleagues left and they still have access, right? Or they change roles and they have access, or, whatever. So it's low hanging fruit, and that would be amazing if it could. Now there's a lot of automation going on in the space, but man, we'd be a long way ahead of where we are right now if we could get a better handle on that access.
For sure. Yeah. And the third-party risk analysis, it's. I don't think it's any surprise or secret that most organizations have thousands or tens of thousands of third parties, and I would love some more detail there. Like, what are people thinking about? Because there's a lot of components to that. There's answering questionnaires. There's doing due diligence. Lots of stuff like that. So I wonder what they have in mind. What kind of work they have in mind for the AI agents to do there. Next here, which is kind of concerning, as I was scrolling through this newsletter, was a layoff section. Mike Prevet does not usually have a layoff section in this newsletter. Longtime listeners can remember a time when we had a layoff section in our news segment as well, and it seems like it's back. So not just one, but 3 different security vendors have announced some significant layoffs. And of course, they all say, restructuring, we did some acquisitions, there's some redundancies, or AI. In the case of Exonius, they're saying AI was part of the reason. I think that is going to be the number one BS reason that people are going to give for laying off people. In some cases, maybe it's not BS, but it's really easy to say, oh, we don't need that many people. AI is doing everybody's job now.
It really is, yeah. It's too easy.
Yeah.
And in some cases, it's actually
And I think that's rarely going to be true.
So I think one of the problems or one of the things that companies are looking at from an AI perspective is investment in AI resources or in GPUs or in data center access for AI. Certainly companies like Microsoft and Amazon might actually say that they're doing layoffs because of AI. Maybe it's for those investments, not to add fuel to the fire that is the AI excuse, but it could be possible.
I think what we're going to see, and this is purely speculation, are layoffs due to the perception that AI is going to make the business better, smarter, faster, blah, blah, blah. And in 18 to 24 months, we're going to see companies rehiring people because they realize that they still need the human in the loop. I know I've been saying it. I feel like a broken record. I'm like the anti-AI, I guess, because I'm going back to a very 1950s response with my little 45s. But I can tell immediately if a document has been written with AI. It's boring. It's soulless. If you have customer service responses that use AI, they don't get it right. It gets frustrating. Your customer service goes down. We just had a story about coding with AI and the issues that it can cause. I think everybody's excited about and the promises, and these promises may come to fruition, but I think there's going to be a lot of pain before that happens, because you can tell when AI is being used in almost every instance at this point. We were joking about some cat videos before this segment.
Yeah.
And once again, like a cat video, a cat playing ukulele or whatever it is, obviously not, but you can even tell with things that look more real at this point.
Well, so, and there's the interesting thing with this cat video, and you'll know if you've seen it. It's the one where the cat's on the porch playing a violin, and a lady comes out and yells at it because it's late at night. AI becomes okay if it's obviously AI, right? Like AI trying to hide the fact that it's AI. That's where people have a problem, I think,
Yes.
when you try and pass off AI as human. Like that's disingenuous. It ruins trust. And it just makes you feel icky. Like I watched a YouTube video the other day, and it was a good video. The topic was good. The content was good, but I couldn't unhear the fact that the script was written by AI, just the way that the grammar was structured, the way it ended sentences, and it ruined the video for me. So it's just, I think that's one of the worst things about AI is that once you recognize the pattern, and human brains are very good at recognizing patterns. Like if you've ever walked a beach and you're looking for a specific thing like shark's teeth or, glass that's been smoothed out or something like that, you start out having a hard time, and then that's all you can see. Like you're seeing them everywhere, and you're picking up, if it's a beach where you're allowed to pick things up way more than you ever wanted. And it's kind of a curse because it's used so broadly now. Like I hate that it ruined that video for me, because I really like the creator. I really like the content. But I just wanted to turn it off the moment I recognized the AI coming out of his mouth.
I know exactly
And
what
I
you
think
mean.
that's going to be the problem, is that companies are going to try to pass this off as them doing work. And even if they don't, even if they're upfront and clear about it, the soullessness of it, the nuance of it is going to be missing. We're not there. I don't know if we ever will be there with AI. And we're still human, and we're going to be able to, if we can't recognize it immediately, feel it. Something just feels off when you read, when you watch, when you experience something in AI. It's like when you go to a movie and these crazy, CGI things are happening. Like, it's CGI. And your brain kind of turns on and be like, oh yeah, that's fake, that kind of thing. That's exactly what happens when you go to these websites, when you listen to these podcasts, when you watch videos. And companies are going to make the mistake and think that they can skirt by on AI, passing it off as their own work, or thinking that it doesn't matter. And I think 18 to 24 months from now, these companies are going to find out that it did matter, because they're still interacting with humans who buy their products, who use their products, who want their services. And if it's all AI driven, there's still going to be that barrier.
Yeah. And, I think we'll be, some of us will be ahead of the time, because anytime technology is overused, it creates kind of a renaissance where, people get a lot of following, get a lot of attention by not touching it at all, right? By kind of bucking that trend and finding the other side of it. So it's something I tell every time I do a webcast and somebody's like they try and blur their background or whatever, and it looks terrible because half their face disappears and reappears 5 times, a minute. And I'm like, I just turn it off. And but my background's messy. like, you know what? Like, I think people are going to appreciate that more and more as people are using AI tools to make the videos more slick, to cut out all the ums and uhs and stuff like that. People are going to start to crave that kind of human touch to things, because things will be too polished. And I don't know, it, like you said, when it feels off, like it generates some anxiety, like it's not a pleasant feeling,
right?
For
and
some people.
And it's not just those that are in security or are familiar with AI and understand it. This past weekend, Saturday Night Live had a skit where there was they were taking old time photos and animating them, and it was AI generated.
Oh, yeah.
And the one of the funniest moments in it was when they have the dog there, and he picks up the dog, and the dog is just a body with two tails. So it is perfect to represent exactly what we're talking about, which is when it's AI and you can tell when it's AI. And we'll get to the point where it's like Katie mentioned, when it's bad CGI, you know that it's CGI, like the Green Lantern movie or even one of the earlier Hulk movies. But when the CGI is really good, it can be difficult to tell. For example, Chronicles of Narnia, the first movie, I asked my mom after that movie, I said, so when did you notice when it was a real lion versus a computer generated one? And she was like, oh, well, it's this one versus that one. And I said, no, it was all CGI because it was that good.
Right. Yeah. So I have to share this. I just, somebody sent this to me right before we started recording. And this is 100-foot wide mural in Britain. And it is just horrendous. Like so somebody posted this on Reddit. Like that looks more like a bird than a dog.
It's a bird dog.
What's happening?
Sorry.
Like how do you get 100-foot mural up? And it's this.
And this is exactly what's happening in.
Sorry to people listening to this. Go to YouTube, check it out. Just for I don't know how many minutes or seconds in we're going to be at this point, but there is a visual here. But that is straight up disturbing. Like, look at the snowman.
Yeah.
Good Lord.
And this is a very, very obvious oops, right? But companies really don't think that their customers, prospects, users, partners, audience, whatever, can tell. And I do think they're going to be able to. And so I think we're going to start to see some reversal. It's going to be a while. Mm-hmm. There are going to be a lot of people without jobs for a long time because companies are going to think, we can just downsize and save ourselves money. And I think it's going to hurt them in the long run. And I think smart companies are going to keep humans in the loop and make sure they have some oversight. I think I mentioned last week, I've been looking for jobs, and every job needs a project now. You don't just have interviews with 17 people. You have to do a project.
Oh, yeah.
You have to do a project.
A work sample, right?
Oh, yeah. And some of them are a lot, let's just say.
Yeah.
And a lot of them say, feel free to use AI. Don't use AI for the whole thing, but feel free to. I just had one that said, do not use AI at all. And I thought, good for you.
Maybe that's the one. Maybe that's the one you want to put your time into, right?
I thought, good for you. But then I also thought, if I'm really smart about it, are you going to be able to tell?
Right, yeah.
And I almost wanted to submit to and be like, so which one used AI and which didn't? Because I do use AI. I think it's important for all of us to know it, to understand its advantages, to understand its limitations. This is not something that's going away, right? We're not going to suddenly be like, well, it didn't work, so we're just abandoning it. I think it's important to know what it is and know how to use it. But I totally forgot where I was going with that. Oh my God. Wow. Okay. It was something about using, got it. Whenever I do use AI for ideation or what have you, I never take it, I never copy paste and leave it there. because I know and to me, when I read it, it looks like, blech, I don't want to read it. I'm not interested in it.
So the flip side of this is, is it good enough, right? Are we in the minority where, we think it's kind of shady, icky, and bribery to give away AirPods Max in exchange for a sales meeting, right? Those kinds of practices, or using AI for things like for all the stuff that we roll our eyes off at, and it's unwatchable to us because it's AI. You still look at it and it still has 100 million views on Facebook, right? It's still
but that's the car crash, right?
Yeah.
So everybody wants to look at that, and I do think, as again, I think I said last week, I have been interviewed.
But in
with
some
companies,
of those cases, only 10% of the people see it as a car crash, and the other 90% don't even realize it's AI, right? Like I that's what I'm worried about.
I can't go down that rabbit hole right now, Adrian. I just can't. But what I will say that stays above the waterline here is that when you're using AI, most people in security, most people in tech are tech forward. And I've been interviewing with companies that are not security companies that, maybe produce apps, so they're software companies, but they're completely outside of the space. There was a fitness company. There have been a couple of retail companies, just completely non-cyber. And the issue that they're having using any kind of ML, AI, LLM in their product is that consumers of those products, these aren't engineers, they're not, cybersecurity folks. When they use AI, people get wigged out a little bit. And I heard this from several companies when I was doing my projects for them. And they're saying to me, be careful about how you position it, because we can tell you that in the last 6 months to a year, any mention of this means our salespeople have to spend X amount of extra time because it freaks people out.
Well, to round up that story, Axonius laid off 10% of its workforce. Bitdefender laid off 7%. Deepwatch laid off 25%. So respectively, 100 people, 125 people, and 70 people. So not small amounts. These are proper layoffs. And last time we saw this start, it did not end quickly. Like it was just the tip of the iceberg. So I don't know. Maybe it's a seasonal blip. I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah, we are getting to the end of the year, which is for some reason a layoff central.
But I am also hearing about acquisitions that seem kind of forced. There's I forget about the one somebody told me about earlier this week. I did not get it into the show notes here, but I've heard of at least 2 acquisitions that seemed kind of ran out of money, kind of forced, potential acqui-hires. And these are companies who raised at least $100 million. So, and we've been predicting that for a while, right? Like after the free money stopped and valuations got a correction a couple of years ago, there was a question of, are you ever going to raise another round? One of them was Balbix. And I think Balbix went to Safe Security, which is a third-party vendor management startup. So, and the idea was, how can Safe afford that? Well, if it's a distressed sale, their investors did not make money on that one potentially. Pantera picked up a professional services firm, but there's not really any acquisitions to speak of. The only big funding here was Sweet Security, which is described as an Israeli-based cloud runtime attack surface management platform, which is kind of confusing to me. When I looked at it, it's like CNAP plus an AI firewall. So that's not how I would use the term attack surface management, but who knows? But yeah, most of the funding we're seeing last couple of weeks, the majority of it has been coming out of Israel. So they are still funding hard. I am going to share my screen again for this next story. Find the right thing here.
Oh, yes. This is great.
So the classic XKCD article, that looks like a bunch of Jenga blocks. And it's like, this is the internet. And this one tiny piece down here is, some, one open source developer in Iowa or Oklahoma. I forget the random US state that was used for that example. And there have been some brilliant adaptations of this XKCD article. And this one has like, whatever Microsoft is doing is like an angry bird flying at the stack of things. And then Cloudflare and AWS are stacked in the bottom. And there's a shark chewing on a undersea cable at the very bottom. DNS is way down there at the bottom. AI is a screw jack, I think is what you call that kind of jack. Like you jack up your car to put on a spare tire. That's AI. And it's like right in the middle of the stack, just toppling everything over. It's very funny and depressingly true.
Yes.
To some extent.
Yes.
So we have now seen in the span of a month, AWS, Azure, Cloudflare, and GitHub have major outages.
And maybe it's the wildfire
exhausting
approach where every once in a while, one of them has to have an issue in order for them to maintain and continue being running at 5 nines or whatever.
Exactly. Great analogy. You've got
clearing
that
out the
fertile
brush.
ground.
Right. Exactly.
The underbrush.
And I mean, the latest one.
Putting nitrogen back in the soil.
Right. Cloudflare, because a file grew too big,
Literally, yeah, it was underbrush, burning away underbrush. It was a file for IDS or something like that. It was something that they put threat IOCs in or something like that. I didn't grok exactly what the file was, but it was just something like, oh yeah, it just couldn't process that text file got too large.
Right.
Cloudflare went down because a text file got too large.
Was that a sentence
Amazing.
you ever thought you'd say?
I don't know. As I get older, I'm less and less surprised by the things I say because, I remember when that happened to me. I just didn't realize it could happen at Cloudflare scale.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, there's a joke that every file is either a text file or a zip file. And that's so true.
That's funny. Oh, man. All right, moving on here. Not a lot to talk about. Don't work for North Korea if you're a U.S. citizen. Or especially if you're in the U.S. and you're not a U.S. citizen, like the one Ukrainian that pled guilty here. But yeah, 5 people pled guilty to taking large sums of money to basically do work on behalf of North Korea and give them access to environments.
I think it's relatively large. It was 2,000 and 5,000, and I think there was an 8,000, and then someone else made like 89,000 on it. So
yeah, I thought it was 5 digits. Like, you're going to sell your country for 4 digits? Like not even 10 grand?
I mean, how did they think this was going to turn out?
There are desperate people out there. I mean,
I'm not saying there isn't a lot I would do for a lot of money, but it's not $89,000.
Okay, yeah, the former U.S. Army soldier earned at least $51,000, and there was someone else who earned $89,000, but a couple of other people earned $3,400 to $4,500. So go figure.
The one thing they had in common, they were all relatively young. 2 were in their 20s, 2 were 30, 1 24, 1 34. I don't know how old the Ukrainian was. They don't say. I mean, well, that's the thing. There's over 300 million people in the U.S. The odds are you'll find somebody, right? If you search across the entire landscape. So,
yeah, I can understand taking risks if you're desperate, but taking this kind of risk to work for North Korea, like, who doesn't know that isn't going to turn out well for you?
The 4 or 5 people that just got
Well,
indicted.
okay, all right. That was thanks.
We do have we have their full names. We can tell you exactly who. All right, moving on.
I learned that I learned the abbreviation of North Koreans is NORCs, according to that article.
Oh,
seriously?
That's
is
what
that
it
like
said.
a derogative, or is that
I have no
what they
idea.
prefer to be called?
I don't know.
so
I
is South
defer to the
Korea
article.
Sorks?
I'm not going to find out by asking one of them.
Yeah, it's from the
All
Register
right.
article.
Moving on. This one was wild. So story number 4, this was a breach where the attacker encouraged the victim to negotiate on the ransom. And they did negotiate. In fact, instead of paying the ransom, they started sending them, they said, hey, we're going to send you $10,000 a month every month for at least 5 years. And the attackers were like, what? You're doing what? They're like, no, we don't want you to do that. We want a lump sum. And they're like, nope, sorry. You're now going to get 24 easy installments of $10K.
It's the Klarna for ransomware.
It's like some kind of advertisement for, what Afterpay or something like, or Klarna.
Yeah, Klarna, right.
Klarna for ransomware victims.
Yeah, and the attackers were actually said something like, "This don't be childish. Like, give us our money, or we're going to release the thing." And
they just did not listen, and they're just like, "Nope, here's $10,000," and they just sent the $10,000.
Right. And the attackers were like, well, give us your Bitcoin wallet so we can send this back to you, or we're just going to send it back to the wallet it came from.
Okay.
Hilarious.
Jeez.
Okay. I wonder if they had were they talking to their cyber insurance company and they said to do this? Were they working with professional negotiators, or was this company just like, we can handle the, I know business. I can do deals.
Apparently they had a negotiator, but the article did call out and say that it was weird that the negotiator didn't want to see a file list or something like that, which is apparently part of the process.
Maybe the negotiator was an LLM.
Perhaps.
It could be. Yeah, it's reminding me of Die Hard. What's that character's name? He's like, I do $1 million deals for breakfast.
Oh yes.
He tries to smooth talk the terrorists. All right. The next one is much happier. So this is checkout.com. The CTO refused to pay the ransom. And in fact, he took the ransom amount and he sent it to Carnegie Mellon and University of Oxford's cybersecurity centers to support cybercrime research instead. And he told them to get bent.
Yeah.
And so the other side of it is kind of unfortunate. They don't say it's an FTP server, but they said it was a legacy third-party cloud file storage system that wasn't properly decommissioned. So it could have been an S3 bucket, could have been some kind of FTP server or something like that, that they forgot to decommission. And that story is all too common.
Yeah. Yeah, they said that their PCI environment wasn't touched and no credit card information was obtained. So it was probably minimal impact to them when this came through. Yeah.
So that made me happy. That was checkout.com Chief Technology Officer Mariano Alberta took full responsibility for it and handled it in possibly the best way I think a company could. So I'd never heard of checkout.com before this, but I am a fan now.
Yeah.
And that's why you should handle it this way. Like, I think literally by having a breach, you can improve your sales if you handle it really, really well. Let's see. So the next one is a bit odd. I'd never heard of this tool before. I don't know if either of you have, but it's called Immunify 360, and it's a free malware scanning tool for Linux. that seems to have found a niche in large web hosting companies. So large web hosting companies, if you're GoDaddy or something like that, and you offer free hosting or cheap hosting or something like that, and you want a way to scan all your customer, all 10 million of your customer websites quickly, that seems what this is built for. But like we saw when Tavis Ormandy took a close look at AV vendors like a decade ago, you can compromise a system by intentionally creating malware that subverts a vulnerability in the AV scanner itself, and that's what happened here. I think it was malicious PHP code when analyzed could basically take over the privileges of the scanner, which of course is running as root.
Right. And it's a remote code executable capability of the vulnerability. I had not heard of this before the article.
Well, it's remote in that, like, you would need some way to get the file in a spot that the scanner would scan it.
Right.
So it would have to be a website that allows you to upload files to the website, and you would have to somehow get PHP code into that file that you uploaded. So that's the attack vector. So yeah, that was a weird one. We don't often see vulnerabilities like that these days. So there's a bajillion vulnerabilities coming out every day. So I just brought that one in because it was uncommon. Number 7 is not a kind of an odd one out. Not really an enterprise thing, but for Proton apps, Proton email has email calendar. They basically have a full replacement for Google Drive these days, or Microsoft 365. And they now have a feature that if something happens to you, you get hit by a bus, whatever, you can set up kind of a dead man switch where somebody can send an email, and if you don't respond within a certain number of days that you specify, it will delegate access to your stuff to that person. So you can specify who that person is that can, and they also have to have a Proton Mail account. But I think this is something that a lot of people need to think about. I hear a lot of terrible stories about, somebody had a heart attack or something, terrible happened to them, and they passed away and left a giant pain for their loved ones, maybe their employer, all kinds of stuff, because nobody could get to their data because it's all encrypted, right?
Right. I think it's a great idea.
Identity and access management is hard. Whether it's administering identities, managing and controlling access, building, implementing, and enforcing policies, or governing the whole thing, IAM is often the realm of inefficient processes, bloated implementation timelines, and expensive and complex projects that struggle to solve problems. Thanks to Junto, those challenges can be a thing of the past. Junto delivers a full-stack IAM platform with a microservices architecture that delivers all of the functionality your unique environment demands, and an implementation model built for rapid and relevant time to value without requiring specialized staff and skills. Learn more at securityweekly.com/Junto. And then number 8, I haven't used this category before. It's kind of could have been dumpster fire. It was dumpster fire. And I was like, no, this is enshittification. So the Cory Doctorow coined term enshittification I'm using for this one. So I saw something where basically this product safety group looked at AI in toys, because people are starting to put generative AI in children's toys. And they basically got this one like teddy bear, AI-enabled teddy bear. It's supposed to tell you bedtime stories and stuff like that. And it's really cool because it can tell you custom ones. Like the parent can say, okay, take these 3 elements and make a bedtime story out of it. Very cool, right? But how can it be abused? Well, sure. Yeah, it can tell you how to do all kinds of dangerous stuff. And they successfully had sexy time conversations with it. So all kinds of stuff you would not want your child to be able to say to it. And I went out there. The one that was specifically called out has been pulled from the internet. You can't buy it. But I found another one that you can buy that was still available on Amazon and was cheaper. The one that got pulled was $100. This one was only like $30 or $40, which is concerning in itself that something that does this is that cheap.
Right.
But this is Poe, the AI story bear. And I'm going to do some security research over the break. And hopefully by our next episode, I'll have this thing working. Has a little powered by OpenAI and powered by Claude up here in the corner. What a terrible idea. I'm going to have a lot of fun messing with. All right. One more essay here before we get to the squirrel stories. And the essay is The Sins of Security Vendor Research. I thought this was interesting because, like, I think a lot of, if you've ever worked on the vendor side and published research, you know the kind of tightrope that you walk between marketing telling you, there's pressure, to use it to sell a product, right? That's what pays for vendor research is selling products. Some vendors let the researchers pretty much do whatever they want, and they get pretty good results with that. And then some vendor research is, barely concealed sales pitch, right? So I thought this was interesting. Katie, any thoughts on this?
This
is close to home, right?
It does. I haven't been lucky enough in my last couple of companies to do this kind of vendor research, but I used to do it all the time. And I worked outside of security for a little bit for CFO magazine, and our whole job was doing, survey, like actual survey work. And I learned a ton from not working at a vendor company doing actual research. And it's very hard because you do have the pressure of writing something that's in line with the product your company's selling. But at the same time, I think if people would realize that doing an actual research report with real data that isn't totally skewed. Let's just get this out in the open. Data can be skewed and will be skewed by anybody who is doing the analysis at any level, right? How badly it is skewed is completely
especially surveys.
Especially
survey data.
But it is completely dependent, not only on the answers and making sure you have the right demographics included, but also on the person doing the analysis. And if you have anybody in any kind of position, which any loyalties one way or the other, there's going to be some sort of human inference involved, right? And also, nobody at vendor companies likes someone who wants a completely realistic survey if it doesn't support the message and the methods. Mm-hmm. So there's always going to be some of that happens because the interpretation of data is where things become problematic. Data itself is not problematic in general. Yes, you could have all janitors answering a security survey, and then, yes, the data is problematic. But as long as you have the right demographics, the data itself is not problematic. It's the interpretation, and we're all human, and at least for now, the humans are doing the analysis. And we've already talked about the problems with AI and LLMs. So you get this data, and then you have to write something compelling, and there's no vendor on the planet that's going to want some research that isn't skewed in some way, because you're never going to get research that 100% supports the company, and you're never going to get data that you're never going to get a full data set that you can't do something about, right? And your job, if you work for a company, is to make sure that company is selling. And if you're working for a company you like, which hopefully you are, you don't want to go in there and intentionally screw them up. But you have to be careful, because when it comes through like it's marketing BS, and I mean, I've fought this my whole career. A lot of people look at me and think, oh, she's just a marketer. She doesn't know anything about technology. Oh, she's just going to throw marketing buzzwords in there. And then I have to send them like, I spend a lot of time defending myself because I don't consider myself.
Yeah, you have to work hard to, rise above that kind of assumption, the stereotype.
And I shouldn't have to, right? But the problem is that you've got pressure, and you've also got people in marketing positions who aren't technical, and they don't really know. And if you work at a vendor company, you are fed the Kool-Aid. We're all fed the Kool-Aid. And hopefully we want to drink the Kool-Aid, right? We want to be able to drink the Kool-Aid and share the Kool-Aid. But if you're not careful, you're going to get dismissed. You're going to be a headline for a day or two. Maybe you'll get a press release. Maybe Dark Reading will pick it up. Well, and then everybody will forget.
That's part of it, is everybody does it. So
Right.
just the quantity of stuff coming out is a problem in itself. So even if you do like a perfect job on it, you might still just be out there for a day. There's all kinds of overlooked, some really good stuff out there that I think gets overlooked because either they just release it at a bad time. Like the M-Trends report, I think, came out on the same day as the Verizon data breach report.
Yeah.
It's like, why? Why would you do that?
Yeah. There is that issue. But I do also think, not to cut you off, but I do think if you can have a report that really is an honest research report, it would have legs. It would have a lot more legs than stuff that, thinks that all it's doing at the end is putting in and this is why you should use XYZ company. But the reality is, if you've got a marketing team, a comms team, a content team, whatever team that's writing the report, that's also writing the typical marketing and comms and PR documents, they're already using the language. They're already thinking in that. Every decent company has a messaging document that is evangelized throughout the company because you need to be on message for branding purposes, for purposes of being memorable. You need to have that consistency. You have to have that continuity in messaging. And so you've already got, and I'm not saying drinking the Kool-Aid in a bad way. I don't mean it that way. I'm just trying to illustrate that you've already got a bunch of people who are, for other very good reasons, thinking the same things, the same words, the same phrases on a minute-to-minute basis. It's super, super hard to separate it, but that's where you get into trouble with vendor research and you get dismissed. And I think the number one thing, like you said, for those of you who don't have access to the report or haven't read it, sin one, fear, uncertainty, and doubt. Just don't. Don't make people think
security marketing leans too hard on fear. Yeah.
Right. Just don't do it. Don't scare people. Like, just don't. False novelty. Once again, we talk about how quick cybersecurity moves. We don't have enough time. I don't think cybersecurity moves that quickly if we're still dealing with a lot of the same legacy problems. We have new things optimizing and maximizing the efficacy against those problems, but false novelty, probably stay away from that too. Correlation, not causation. This is a life issue. People just remember correlation is not causation. Be really clear when you're talking about correlation versus causation. And then the last sin is the one that I think might be more difficult to get out of, selling out to marketing, because who else is going to be writing these documents? Who else theoretically has the writing skills to be able to write these reports? The same people who are creating the overall messaging for the organization, the same people who are training sales on messaging.
That language and vibe needs to be significantly different from your marketing copy, right? Otherwise, it's not going to pass the sniff test for most people.
And it's really hard to change gears from that messaging doc, from that branding, and do something.
Should be separate people probably.
It probably should, and in some cases it is. Bigger companies
or a separate LLM model. I don't know.
A separate, well, and this is one of the issues that we're going to see, because I can tell you when I have used an LLM for work purposes, it starts using all that same language. I just used
it does.
an LLM.
It defaults
again to ideation.
Milk
and
toast marketing voice. Yeah.
It pulled up something from my old company, and I'm like, what? That was a completely different chat.
Yeah. That's a feature now for some of them, is they have memory across chats.
Yeah,
I saw somebody else
turn that off. So let's
I saw somebody else sharing an example of where it pulled out of somebody else's account. Like it was like this was like a brand new account, brand new chat, and it started off as if it were continuing a previous chat, and they're like, "Where the hell did this come from?" And it was just some kind of another Redis database problem there, where some session IDs got mixed up or something like that. Who knows?
I will say that without giving too much away, I have seen people that I've worked with, whether it's at my company or some of the freelancing work that I do, come at me with stuff to edit that I know has pulled from my own documents, because I know how I write. I have a very specific style. It's pretty noticeable if you read my stuff frequently. And they clearly fed it into an LLM, and I'm like, wow, that's bad. When you're using an LLM to give me my own style.
Yeah. All right. We got 2 squirrel stories. We're going to go through real quick here. The first one, if you guys remember the Louvre story where they used a lift to get up to a window to break in and take all those jewels. The company that makes the lift made an ad out of it. And they used a picture from the heist. It says, "If you're in a hurry." I'm not sure how to pronounce the name of the manufacturer. Bacher, maybe? Bacher Agilo carries your treasures up to 400 kilograms at 42 meters per minute. Quiet as a whisper, thanks to its 230-volt electric motor.
Okay, here's my bad attempt. Becker Mansion and Werke. I think that's my attempt at the name. And I think this is brilliant. I think
we'll go with your I
think it is hysterical and good for this company for having a sense of humor.
Yeah.
I mean, especially a German company. Not exactly the country known for its...
Humor is not their greatest export.
It is not. They're good at a lot of things, but humor and smiling...
Yeah. And then the other squirrel story here is this is a company that sells coffee subscriptions. I don't think you have to get a subscription. You can buy individual bags of coffee. But their niche, their kind of marketing catch here is you can do it via SSH. So you can order your coffee entirely from an SSH terminal.
That's brilliant. Know your audience.
And it looks really good. So you can literally just SSH to terminal.shop. If you're listening to this right now, try just SSHing to terminal.shop. And you'll get to see the interface, and you can just use the arrow keys to go through all the different products. It's brilliant. You do have to provide a public key if you want to be able to sign up for a subscription or anything like that, because they have to remember who you are. You can also go to the website at terminal.shop, and it has instructions on how to properly SSH to it. So I am totally going to buy some coffee from this just purely for the experience. But I thought that was very creative.
Oh, that's very creative. That's great.
Thank you so much, Sean, Katie, for joining me today. It was a fun one today. Almost kept everything on time.
We're pretty close.
Big thanks for everyone watching or listening to this week's episode of Enterprise Security Weekly. Next week, we're off for Thanksgiving, but I'll be recording an intro probably later today. I know I have to do an ad read today as well. And we're going to share some interviews that we did live from InfoSec World this year. So I think we have 6 interviews from InfoSec World. And that'll come out on December 1st. And then we'll be back with a new show on December 8th with Danny Jenkins from ThreatLocker. So we'll see you then. Bye-bye.